There was something about the way Lillian kept one hand on that stroller. Not both hands, just one. Like she had learned over time that even in a place full of families and children and people laughing too loud near the water, she still needed to be ready to pull the stroller back, ready to calm one baby while reaching for the other, ready to keep her voice steady if somebody from her past came walking up with hurt in his face and questions he had no right to ask loudly. Benjamin noticed that before he noticed almost anything else. He had come through that park angry, not regular angry either. The kind of angry rich men get when people have been telling them no all morning, but everyone around them is still too careful to say the real reason why. His shirt was sticking to his back. His phone kept buzzing. His security guard was 3 steps behind him, trying to pretend he wasn't watching his boss come apart in public. And then Benjamin saw her, Lillian Carter, the woman he had spent nearly 2 years trying not to think about too deeply, because thinking about her meant admitting he had not handled the ending right. She was standing near the splash pad with a double stroller, a diaper bag hanging off one side, and 2 babies close enough in age and face that his mind did something strange before his heart could catch up. One of the babies dropped a snack cup, the other turned toward the sound, and Benjamin stopped walking, because that baby had his mouth. Not exactly, not in some perfect, dramatic way, but enough. Enough to make the heat, the noise, the music from the park speakers, and the meeting he had just stormed out of all fall away at once. Lillian saw him looking. That was the part that stayed with me. She didn't look surprised. She looked tired, like she had imagined this moment too many times already and had finally run out of fear for it. Benjamin walked toward her, and the first words out of his mouth were not gentle. They were not careful. They were the kind of words people use when shame shows up disguised as anger. "Were you ever going to tell me?" Lillian's fingers tightened around the stroller handle. One of the babies stared up at him, like he was just another stranger blocking the sun. And Lillian said, very quietly, "Benjamin, don't do this loud." That was when he should have understood. But people usually don't understand at the moment they're being handed the truth. Most of the time they fight it first. Welcome to Mr. Kingswell Stories, where powerful life lessons come through unforgettable stories about love, betrayal, family, and second chances. If you're new here, subscribe and join us for more stories that make you think differently about life. And before we begin, tell me in the comments what time it is and where you're watching from. Benjamin didn't lower his voice. That was the first thing Lillian noticed after she told him to. Not that he was yelling, but his tone still carried, sharp, tight, like he was trying to keep control and failing at it in small, noticeable ways. People weren't staring yet, not fully, but a couple walking past slowed just enough to listen. A teenager near the splash pad glanced over, then pretended not to. Lillian shifted her body slightly, angling the stroller away from him. "Benjamin," she said again, quieter this time, but firmer, "you're not about to stand here and answer me first." His voice dropped, but it didn't soften. "Are they mine?" The question landed heavy, not because she didn't expect it, but because of how fast he went there. No pause, no hesitation, just straight to ownership. One of the twins, Miles, started twisting again, trying to grab the loose strap hanging from the side of the stroller. Lillian reached down, steadying him with practiced ease. "Sit," she murmured to him, like Benjamin wasn't even part of the moment. That's what got to him. The way she didn't rush, didn't panic, didn't react like this was some dramatic reunion, like he was just another thing she had to manage. Benjamin swallowed, jaw tightening. "Lillian." She finally looked at him fully, then, and for a second, something passed between them. Not softness, not anger either. Recognition. Then it closed again. "Yes," she said. Just that. No build-up. No explanation. "Yes." The word hit him harder than he expected. He nodded once, like he understood something, but he didn't. Not really. "How long?" he asked. Lillian adjusted the diaper bag strap on her shoulder before answering, like she needed her hands doing something. "They just turned 1. Benjamin blinked. His mind did the math fast. Too fast. 1 year. A whole year. His chest tightened, something close to panic creeping up now, mixing with the anger. "And you just didn't think to tell me?" There it was again. That edge. Lillian let out a breath through her nose. Not quite a laugh. Not quite disbelief. You don't get to say it like that. Like what? He snapped, taking a step closer. Like I should have known? I didn't know, Lillian. I'm finding out right now, in the middle of... He gestured vaguely around. Them, like the park itself had personally offended him. This. Micah, the quieter twin, started fussing. Not crying, just small, restless sounds. Lillian leaned in, adjusting his position, brushing her hand lightly over his head. It's too loud, she murmured, mostly to herself. Benjamin exhaled sharply. Yeah, it is. That's kind of what happens when someone keeps something like this from you. I didn't keep anything from you. Her voice cut through his, still low, but sharp now. That made him pause, not stop, but hesitate just enough for it to register. What are you talking about? He said, slower this time, but still defensive. Lillian straightened up, one hand still on the stroller. I called you. Benjamin frowned immediately. No, you didn't. I texted you. I would have seen. I emailed you. Twice. She didn't raise her voice, didn't rush, just laid it out. I sent a letter to your office, certified. I tried to come see you once, but your security stopped me before I even got close. Benjamin shook his head, already rejecting it before fully processing. No, that doesn't. No, I didn't get any of that. Lillian watched him carefully, not accusing, not soft either, just watching. I figured, she said. That landed differently, not like blame, more like confirmation. Benjamin ran a hand over the back of his neck, suddenly aware of how hot it was, how tight his shirt felt against his skin. That doesn't make sense, he muttered, more to himself now. I didn't change my email. My number... He paused. His number had changed. During the merger, new device, new line. But my office would have... Your office doesn't know me, Lillian said. Not really. He looked at her again. Something shifting behind his eyes now. The certainty he walked in with. Gone, or at least cracked. So what, you just gave up? He asked, but there was less bite in it now. Lillian's grip tightened slightly on the stroller handle. I didn't give up, she said. I stopped chasing someone who wasn't answering. That silence between them stretched, not dramatic, just uncomfortable, real. Miles dropped the strap and reached toward Benjamin then, curious. His fingers opened and closed like he was trying to grab the air. Benjamin looked down at him, really looked this time, at the shape of his face, the way his eyes tracked movement, the small crease near his mouth when he concentrated. Something in Benjamin's chest shifted again, this time slower, heavier. Micah leaned back slightly, pressing into the stroller, watching him with cautious interest. Two completely different reactions. To him, to a stranger. Benjamin swallowed. What are their names? He asked, quieter now. Lillian hesitated. Not long, but enough for him to feel it. Miles, she said, nodding toward the one reaching for him, and Micah. Benjamin repeated the names under his breath, like he needed to hear them out loud to make them real. Miles, Micah. He nodded slowly, then looked back at her. You really expect me to just accept this? He asked, like I'm supposed to just... What, step back? After a year? Lillian met his gaze. You don't get to step into anything, she said. Not like that. There it was. Clear, firm, no room for interpretation. Benjamin's jaw tightened again, but it wasn't the same anger as before. This one had something else in it now. Uncertainty. So what does that mean? He asked. Lillian adjusted the stroller again, already starting to angle it away from him. It means this isn't a conversation we're having in the middle of a park, she said. He stepped slightly to the side, blocking her path without thinking. Lillian, move, not loud, not emotional, just direct. For a second, he didn't. Then he saw the way Micah's face tightened, the way Miles pulled his hand back, unsettled by the tension. Benjamin stepped aside. Lillian didn't thank him. She just started walking. And for the first time since he saw her, Benjamin didn't follow right away. He stood there, watching the stroller move farther down the path, the diaper bag swinging slightly with each step. 2 babies. His babies. A year. Gone. And the worst part wasn't just that he didn't know. It was that, standing there, watching them leave, he wasn't even sure he had the right to go after them. Benjamin followed anyway. Not fast this time. He didn't call her name at first either. He just moved behind her through the park path, past a row of dripping kids in bright swim shoes, past a father shaking water out of a plastic stroller fan, past a teenage employee wiping melted popsicle syrup off the side of a trash can. Lillian knew he was there. She didn't turn around. That irritated him more than it should have, not because she owed him anything in that second, but because he could feel how little control he had. In his world, people stopped when he walked into rooms. People waited when he needed a minute. People made space for his confusion. Lillian didn't. She kept walking like she had two babies who needed shade, snacks, and maybe a diaper change, and his life falling apart behind her was not the most urgent thing in the world. "Lillian," he said finally. She pushed the stroller toward a quieter stretch beside a low wall where mist from the splash zone didn't reach. There were benches under palms, most of them occupied by tired parents guarding towels and half-empty water bottles. She stopped near one that had enough room for the stroller, but didn't sit. "What?" she said. Benjamin came around to face her. His security guard had stopped several yards back, pretending to check his phone. Benjamin noticed and hated that too. "Can we not do this with him standing there?" Lillian asked, nodding toward the guard. Benjamin turned his head. "Give me a minute." The guard hesitated. "I said, give me a minute." The man stepped farther away. Lillian watched that exchange, and something small hardened in her face. "What?" Benjamin asked, catching it. "What is that look?" "That's exactly what I'm talking about." "What does that mean?" "It means you're used to telling people to move, and having them move." Benjamin almost answered too quickly. He caught himself, but not enough. "This isn't about him." "No," Lillian said. "It's about you." It usually was. That stung because it sounded too calm to be an insult. Miles made a small complaining sound, kicking one foot against the stroller tray. Lillian crouched and opened the diaper bag. She pulled out a small container of crackers, shook a few into the snack cup, and handed it to him. Benjamin stared, not at her exactly, at the routine of it, the way she knew which pocket held what, the way Micah reached for the soft toy clipped to the side without even looking, the way Miles stopped fussing the second the crackers appeared. A whole language existed between them that Benjamin did not know. "Are they okay?" he asked. Lillian glanced up. "They're babies." I know what you mean." She stood again. "They're healthy. They're safe. They have what they need." The sentence had edges on it. Benjamin rubbed his thumb against his palm, a nervous habit he would have denied if anyone mentioned it. "I should have known." Lillian's eyes flicked to his. "You didn't." "I said I should have." "But you didn't." He looked away. For a few seconds, the only sounds were water splashing nearby, a child crying because someone had taken his goggles, and the distant recording of a cheerful park announcement telling guests to stay hydrated. Benjamin said, "I want to see them." "You are seeing them." "No. Don't do that." "Don't do what?" "Act like I'm asking for something ridiculous." Lillian's face changed then, not dramatically, just enough that he knew he had stepped wrong again. "You are," she said. "They're my children. They don't know that. They will." She gave a short breath, almost a laugh, but there was no humor in it. "You don't get to walk up after 12 months and start making declarations." "I didn't know, Lillian, and I believe you." That stopped him. He had expected more fight, more accusation. Maybe part of him wanted it. Anger would have given him something to push against. But her saying she believed him made the situation worse. Because if she believed him, then the wound was no longer simple. It meant nobody in this moment was getting the clean comfort of being completely innocent. "I believe you didn't know," she said, "but that doesn't change what happened on my end." Benjamin stepped closer, then stopped when Lillian's hand moved to the stroller again. He noticed it now, how quickly she did that, like his emotion had weight, like it could spill onto the babies if she didn't block it. "I'm not going to hurt them," he said quietly. "I didn't say you were. You keep moving like I'm dangerous. I'm moving like you're upset. I am upset. And they don't know what to do with that." Benjamin looked down. Micah was watching him with serious, uncertain eyes. Miles had cracker crumbs on his chin and was trying to shove 2 pieces into his mouth at once. Benjamin's throat tightened. He had imagined fatherhood before, vaguely, in the distant, polished way men like him imagined things they assumed would arrive on schedule. A nursery with neutral colors. A wife laughing at something from the doorway. His mother behaving herself because the baby was finally here. Christmas cards. His father holding a grandchild before his hands got too weak. He had never imagined meeting his sons like this, in a public park. As a stranger, "I want a test," he said. Lillian nodded once. "Fine." He blinked. "Fine?" "Yes, a DNA test is fine." The quickness of her answer threw him off. "You're not going to argue?" "No." "Why?" "Because I don't need to." He stared at her. Lillian looked tired again, not weak, just worn in a way that made him ashamed to keep demanding energy from her. "I know who their father is," she said. "I knew before they had names. I knew before I had insurance figured out. I knew when I was throwing up before work and still trying to sound normal on the phone. I knew when I sat in an ultrasound room by myself and the tech went quiet for a second before telling me there were 2 heartbeats." Benjamin's face shifted. She saw it and stopped, her mouth pressed together like she regretted giving him that much. He said her name softly. "Lillian." "No." She looked away, blinking once. "Don't." He didn't know what the no meant. "Don't pity me. Don't touch me. Don't make this tender," because tender was easier for him than accountable. "Maybe all of it." Miles dropped another cracker. It landed near Benjamin's shoe. Without thinking, Benjamin bent to pick it up. "Don't give it back to him," Lillian said. He froze. It hit the ground. "I know," he said, embarrassed. She took it from him and tossed it into a nearby trash can. Such a small thing, and still, it made him feel useless. "Can I hold one of them?" he asked. Lillian's answer came immediately. "No." He looked at her, hurt flashing before he could hide it. She saw that too, and for a second, her face softened. Not enough to give in, just enough to show she wasn't made of stone. "They don't know you," she said. "I'm their father." "You're Benjamin," she said. "Right now, that's all." The words landed clean, hard. He looked at the twins again. Miles, reaching toward the snack cup. Micah, clutching the toy and studying him like he was waiting to decide whether Benjamin belonged near them or not. Benjamin nodded slowly, but it was not agreement. "Not yet. What happens now?" he asked. Lillian adjusted the stroller brake with her foot. "Now I take them home. And me? You call me tomorrow. I don't have your number." She looked at him for a long second. That old pain moved behind her eyes again. "You did," she said. Benjamin had no answer. Lillian reached into the side pocket of the diaper bag, pulled out a receipt, and found a pen. She wrote her number on the back, folded it once, and held it out. He took it carefully, like it was something official. Maybe it was. "When you call," she said, "you talk to me like a grown man, not like somebody robbed you." His fingers tightened around the paper. "And if I want to be involved?" Lillian looked down at the twins, then back at him. "Then you start slow. You do it legally. You do it respectfully. And you understand something right now." Benjamin waited. Her voice stayed steady, but her eyes did not. "You don't get to show up today and call yourself their father just because biology finally caught up with you." For a moment, he looked almost offended. Then Miles sneezed, startling himself, and Micah immediately started crying because Miles was crying. Lillian moved without hesitation, crouching, soothing, wiping Miles's nose with a tissue from somewhere Benjamin hadn't even seen her reach. Both babies needed her at once, and she handled it, tired, practiced, alone. Benjamin stood there with her number in his hand, watching the life he had missed unfold in front of him, in small, ordinary motions. Lillian released the stroller brake. This time, he didn't block her. She walked away with both boys fussing softly, one tiny sock half slipping off Miles's foot. Benjamin looked down at the folded receipt in his palm. Her handwriting was still the same. That almost broke him. Benjamin didn't call her that night. He sat in his car in the parking structure for almost 40 minutes first, engine off, hands still wrapped around the steering wheel like he had just finished driving through something he didn't understand. The receipt with her number was folded in the center console. He didn't open it again. Didn't need to. He had already memorized it without trying. Miles, Micah, 1 year old. The numbers kept rearranging themselves in his head, trying to make sense of something that refused to line up. A whole year. He leaned back against the seat and closed his eyes. For a second, he thought about calling immediately, just to hear her voice again, without the noise of the park around them, to ask the questions that didn't come out right earlier. But something stopped him. Not pride exactly, something closer to hesitation, because for the first time in a long time, Benjamin wasn't sure what version of himself would show up on the other end of that call, so he didn't make it. Instead, he went home. Lillian didn't think about whether he would call that night. She was too tired for that kind of guessing. By the time she got the twins into the car, both of them were already fussy from the heat and the disruption. Miles had worked himself into a small, stubborn cry that came in waves. Micah didn't cry loud, just constant, soft sounds that built until they filled the car. "It's okay, baby," she murmured, buckling Miles in, then leaning across to adjust Micah's straps. "We're going home." The car smelled faintly like sunscreen and crackers. Normal, steady. She sat in the driver's seat for a second before starting the engine, hands resting in her lap, head tipped forward, just breathing. The park still clung to her. Noise, water, Benjamin's voice cutting through everything. "Were you ever going to tell me?" She closed her eyes tighter, then shook it off and started the car. The apartment complex was quiet when she pulled in. Not silent, never silent, but the usual sounds. A television playing through a thin wall somewhere. A neighbor's car alarm chirping once as someone locked their doors. A dog barking twice, then stopping. Home. She got both babies upstairs without rushing, one on each hip in 2 trips, diaper bag hooked over her shoulder. The hallway light flickered like it always did, and she made a mental note she'd probably forget to put in a maintenance request again. Inside, the air conditioning hit her skin. Cooler than outside, but not by much. The unit struggled during afternoons like this. She set the twins down on the living room rug. Miles immediately started crawling toward the low coffee table. Pulling himself up with a grunt, Micah stayed where he was for a second, watching the room like he was checking that everything was still where it belonged. Lillian kicked off her shoes near the door. "Okay," she said softly, more to herself than to them. "Let's reset." That word had become important to her. Reset. Not fix. Not solve. Just get through the next piece. She moved through the routine without thinking too hard about it. Diaper changes first. Miles fought his, like it was a personal attack, twisting and kicking until she had to hold his ankles gently but firmly. "Stay still," she said, trying not to laugh. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Micah didn't fight. He just stared at her the whole time, eyes wide, quiet and observant. After that, she warmed up their bottles, checked the fridge, noted what needed to be picked up tomorrow. Milk, wipes, maybe more of the cheaper formula if the price hadn't gone up again. The kitchen light buzzed faintly overhead. She fed them both on the couch, one tucked into each arm, their small bodies settling against her like they had done this 1,000 times, because they had. Miles drank fast, impatient. Micah slower, pausing like he needed to think between sips. Lillian leaned her head back against the couch cushion. This part always slowed everything down, even her thoughts. Benjamin tried to reach for this moment earlier. She pushed that thought away before it could settle. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She didn't look at it right away. Sometimes it was easier not to, but it buzzed again. And again. She sighed, shifting carefully so she didn't wake Miles, who had already drifted halfway to sleep. She reached for the phone with her free hand. Her mother's name flashed across the screen. She answered on the 4th ring. "Hey, you sound tired," Diane Carter said, immediately. "I am." There was a pause on the other end. "You okay?" Lillian hesitated. That was all it took. "What happened?" her mother asked, sharper now. Lillian looked down at the twins. Micah was still awake, watching her face like he always did when she got quiet. She smoothed her hand over his head. "I saw Benjamin today." Silence. Then, "Where?" "The park. By his property." Another pause. Longer this time. "And?" Lillian let out a breath. "And he didn't know." Her mother didn't respond right away. When she did, her voice had shifted. Less surprised, more. Confirming something she had already suspected. "I figured as much." That made Lillian's chest tighten. "You didn't tell me that." "I didn't know for sure," Diane said. "But a man like that doesn't just disappear unless something's off behind him." Lillian leaned forward slightly, adjusting Miles as he stirred. "He thought I hid them," she said. "And what did you say?" "That I didn't." "Good." Lillian gave a tired half smile that her mother couldn't see. "He wants a DNA test." "Of course he does." You're not surprised by that either? I'm not surprised by anything men do when they're trying to catch up to something they missed. Lillian didn't argue, because it felt true. He asked to hold them, she added quietly. And I said no. There was no hesitation this time. Good. That word landed heavier than the first time. Lillian swallowed. I don't know what happens now. Her mother's voice softened, just a little. What happens now is you don't rush nothing. I'm not trying to. I know you're not. But he is, or he will be. Lillian looked down again. Miles was fully asleep now, his mouth slightly open, crumbs still stuck near his chin. Micah blinked slowly, fighting sleep. They looked at him like he was a stranger, Lillian said. Because he is. The simplicity of it made something twist in her chest. She didn't respond. Listen to me, Diane said. You built a life without him. Don't let him walk in and rearrange it just because he finally showed up. I won't. But her voice didn't sound as certain as she wanted it to. Her mother noticed. You still love him? Lillian closed her eyes. For a second, she thought about lying. I don't know what I feel, she said instead. That was closer to the truth. Because what she felt wasn't clean anymore. It wasn't just love. It wasn't just anger either. It was something heavier, complicated, earned. Well, her mother said, figure that out before you let him figure out anything else. They stayed on the phone a little longer, talking about smaller things after that. Groceries, a neighbor, church this Sunday, normal things. When the call ended, Lillian sat there for a while longer, both babies asleep against her. The apartment was quiet again, still. Her phone rested in her hand. No new messages, no missed calls. Benjamin hadn't called. She didn't know whether that made things easier or worse. Across town, Benjamin finally unfolded the receipt again under the dim light of his kitchen. He stared at her handwriting, like it might explain something he still didn't understand. Then he picked up his phone, and this time, he actually dialed. Lillian let the phone ring twice before she answered. Benjamin heard the small sounds of her apartment before he heard her voice. A faucet running, something plastic being set down on a counter, one of the twins making a sleepy little noise in the background. Then Lillian said, "Hello." He stood in his kitchen with one hand pressed flat against the marble island, like the cold surface could keep him steady. "Hey," he said. The word came out too soft, too careful. There was a pause. Benjamin, just his name. No warmth, no anger. That was almost worse. He looked through the glass doors toward the dark shape of his backyard pool. The lights under the water gave everything a blue, expensive glow. Nothing in the house looked lived in. Not really. There were no bottles drying by the sink, no toys underfoot, no half-folded laundry on a chair, just clean counters, controlled lighting, and silence he had once mistaken for peace. "I know you said tomorrow," he said. I didn't want to wait. You waited a year." He closed his eyes. She didn't say it loudly. She didn't even sound cruel. That was what made it land. "I deserve that," he said. "No," Lillian replied. "You don't get to decide what you deserve from me." Benjamin opened his eyes again and stared at his own reflection in the dark glass. "You're right." Another pause. He could tell she hadn't expected him to agree so quickly. "What do you want, Benjamin?" He almost said, "I want to see them." He almost said, "I want to fix this." Both felt wrong before they left his mouth, so he swallowed and said, "Tell me what the next step is." On the other end, Lillian was quiet long enough that he heard one of the twins cough. Then she said, "A DNA test. Okay. And not one arranged by your people." He stiffened. "My people. Your office, your lawyer, your assistant, your mother. Whoever usually handles things before they touch you." Benjamin's fingers curled slightly against the counter. "My mother doesn't handle my personal life." Lillian gave a small sound, not a laugh, not quite. "Benjamin." That was all she said, and somehow it made him feel foolish. He pushed away from the island and paced toward the sink. "Fine. Not through my office. I'll send you the name of a lab. It's court admissible. We can schedule separately, if that's easier." "Separately?" "Yes. You don't want me there?" "I don't know what I want yet," she said, "but I know what I don't want." He waited. "I don't want the boys sitting in some waiting room while we act like we're not carrying all this into the room with us." The boys, Miles and Micah. Benjamin gripped the edge of the sink. I can control myself. I saw you today. His jaw tightened, then loosened, because she was right. He had walked up to her in public and accused her before he even asked whether she was okay. I'm sorry, he said. The words came fast, almost automatic, and he hated that too. Lillian didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was low. Don't use sorry like a key. He stopped pacing. What? Don't say sorry and expect doors to open. He breathed in slowly through his nose. The old Benjamin, the one from yesterday morning, from the boardroom, from before the stroller, would have argued. He would have told her that wasn't fair, that he had just found out, that any man would react. But that version of him suddenly felt young, ugly too. I won't, he said. Lillian seemed to be moving around now. He heard a cabinet close softly. We also need to talk about legal stuff, she said. Legal stuff? Like what? Paternity, birth certificate, child support. Time sharing eventually, if we get there. If we get there, yes. They're my sons. They are babies, she said, sharper now. They are not evidence in your emotional emergency. Benjamin went still. The words hit him directly in the part of him that had been trying to turn pain into urgency. He looked around his kitchen again, at the built-in espresso machine he barely used, at the wine fridge full of bottles selected by someone else, at the empty bar stools where nobody sat. I didn't mean it like that, he said quietly. I know, that's the problem. He didn't respond. Lillian sighed, but it sounded more tired than angry. I have spent a year making decisions based on what kept them stable. Doctor appointments, insurance, daycare wait lists, formula, rent, work schedules, my mother's availability, all of it. So no, Benjamin, you don't get to come in and move faster than the life already happening here. He pressed his hand to his forehead. I'm trying to catch up. You can't catch up by running over us. That one stayed in the air. He heard Miles or Micah make a sharper sound. Lillian covered the phone slightly, but not enough. Shh, baby. I know. I'm coming. Benjamin's chest tightened at the tenderness in her voice. The tenderness that wasn't for him anymore. I should let you go, he said. Yes, she said, but softer now. It's late. Can I ask one thing? Another pause. One thing. Are they asleep? No. He waited, hoping she might offer more. She didn't. Are they okay after today? Lillian breathed out. Miles was cranky. Micah watched the door for a while. Benjamin looked down. The door? He does that when something feels off. He put a hand over his mouth. He had unsettled them, not in some dramatic, irreversible way, just in a small baby way, enough that Micah, cautious little Micah, had watched the door after they got home. I'm sorry, he said again, then immediately closed his eyes. I know. I'm not trying to use it like a key. For the first time, Lillian was quiet in a different way, not forgiving, not soft, but listening. I'll send you the lab information tomorrow, she said. Okay. And Benjamin? Yes? When we start this, I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this to punish you. He swallowed. I know. No, you don't, she said. Not yet. But I need you to. Her voice shifted, becoming steadier, almost businesslike, and he could hear what it cost her to sound that way. I'm doing this because they deserve more than confusion. They deserve order. They deserve adults who don't make them pay for what adults failed to handle. Benjamin nodded, though she couldn't see it. You're right. I know. There was no pride in it. Just exhaustion. A baby started crying then, thin and upset. I have to go, Lillian said. Wait. The word slipped out before he could stop it. She stayed silent. He hated himself for needing one more second from her. What? She asked. Benjamin looked down at the folded receipt, still sitting beside his phone. Thank you for answering. For a moment, all he heard was the baby crying and Lillian breathing. Then she said, Don't make me regret it. The call ended. Benjamin stood there with the dead phone against his ear. Across the kitchen, the pool lights shimmered against the glass. For the first time in years, the house felt exactly as empty as it was. Lillian didn't invite Benjamin over because she wanted him in her apartment. She invited him because the paperwork could only say so much. 2 days after the call, After the lab appointment had been scheduled and after Benjamin had sent one careful text that said, "I'll follow your lead," Lillian sat at her small kitchen table with a manila folder in front of her and wondered if she was making a mistake. The twins were asleep. For now, the apartment had that late-night quiet that only came after a long fight with bedtime. Bottles rinsed and lined upside down near the sink. A basket of clean laundry sat unfolded on the couch. The baby monitor glowed on the table beside a half-empty glass of water and a bowl of stale animal crackers Miles had abandoned earlier. Lillian looked at the folder again, then at the clock on the microwave. 8:42. Benjamin was supposed to arrive at 8:45. She hated that he would probably be on time. At 8:44, there was a soft knock. Not the confident knock she remembered from him, not the kind that assumed the door would open. This one was careful. Lillian stood, wiped her palms against her sweatpants, then hated herself for doing it. When she opened the door, Benjamin was standing there in a dark button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled once, holding nothing. No flowers, no gift bag, no apology disguised as something expensive. Good, she thought, then immediately felt annoyed that he had listened. "Hey," he said, "come in." He stepped inside and looked like he was trying not to look around too much. But he did. Of course he did. The narrow entryway, the stroller folded against the wall, the little shoes near the door, the stack of clinic forms on the side table, the framed photo of Diane Carter holding both boys at their first birthday, one baby crying, one baby staring straight into the camera like he already understood taxes. Benjamin's eyes stopped there. Lillian saw it. She closed the door. "They're asleep," she said. He nodded. "Okay, don't ask to see them tonight." His mouth opened slightly, then closed. "I wasn't going to." She gave him a look. He looked down. "I wanted to, but I wasn't going to ask." That answer was honest enough to make the room more uncomfortable. Lillian walked to the kitchen table. "Sit." He did, not at the head of the table. She noticed that too. He sat on the side, leaving the chair across from him open for her. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere upstairs, a neighbor walked heavily across the floor. The baby monitor made a faint static sound. Lillian sat across from him and placed her hand on the folder. "I don't want to perform pain for you," she said. Benjamin looked at her. "I'm not asking you to." "I know." She tapped the folder once. "But this stuff is ugly. Not dramatic ugly, just ordinary ugly. Dates, receipts, screenshots, things people can deny until you put them in order." Benjamin's face tightened. "Okay." She opened the folder. The first page was a printed call log. She slid it toward him. He looked down. His old number was circled in blue ink. 3 calls in one day. Then another 2 days later. Then another a week after that. He stared at the dates. Lillian watched his eyes move. "That first one was after the test at the clinic," she said. "The regular pregnancy test. Not the ultrasound yet." Benjamin didn't speak. She slid another page over. Texts. Short ones at first. "Can you call me when you can?" Then, "Benjamin, this is important." Then, days later, "I know things ended badly, but I need to talk to you." His throat moved. "I never saw these." "I know." She said it evenly, but her fingers pressed hard against the edge of the table. The next page was an email, printed with the header visible. Subject, "Please read this." Benjamin's email address sat there clearly. His real one, not an assistant's, not an office inbox. His. He leaned closer. Lillian looked away while he read. She didn't want to watch his face take in words she had written while sitting alone in a clinic parking lot with an ultrasound photo on the passenger seat. The email was short, calmer than she had felt. "Benjamin, I know we are not together, and I am not writing this to start a fight. I found out I'm pregnant. I need you to know. I would rather talk in person if you can. Please don't ignore this. Lillian." Benjamin's hand lifted toward his mouth, then dropped before it got there. "There's another one," she said. Just read it." He did. The second email was longer, written after the ultrasound. It mentioned twins, 2 heartbeats, a doctor's appointment, insurance questions, a line near the end that made Benjamin go still. "I'm trying not to be angry before I know whether you're choosing silence or whether something is wrong." He closed his eyes. Lillian sat very still. She had imagined this moment before, but in her imagination she had always been stronger, colder, more satisfied. In real life, it just hurt. Benjamin opened his eyes again. "I didn't choose it," he said, barely above a whisper. Lillian nodded once. "I know that now." He looked up at her, and there was something desperate in his face. "But you didn't then." No, the word was simple. It carried the whole year. She reached into the folder again and pulled out the certified mail receipt. This was the letter. Benjamin took it slowly. The green and white receipt had a tracking number, date stamp, delivery confirmation, and a signature. Not his brow furrowed. "Who signed this?" "I don't know. Someone at your office." He stared at the name. "I know this signature." Lillian's heartbeat picked up despite herself. "Who is it?" Benjamin didn't answer right away. His face had changed. The shame was still there, but something else had entered with it. Recognition. Fear, maybe. He set the receipt down carefully, like it had become evidence in a crime he didn't yet understand. "That's from the family office," he said. Lillian's mouth went dry. "Not the resort office?" He shook his head. "No." The baby monitor crackled. Both of them looked at it. Nothing, just static. Lillian forced herself to breathe. "I drove out once," she said, though she hadn't planned to mention that part yet, "to the Winter Park house. I got stopped at the gate." Benjamin's eyes lifted slowly. "My house?" "Your mother's house," she corrected. "You were staying there then, or at least that's what someone told me." His face went pale in a way she had never seen before. "What did they say?" "That you weren't receiving visitors." He stared at her. "And then?" "And then I sat in a Publix parking lot for 20 minutes because I didn't know where else to go." Benjamin looked down. His hands were clenched together now. Lillian noticed his knuckles had gone white. "I was pregnant with twins," she said, not because he didn't know, but because the room needed to hear it plainly. "I had just been told I needed to monitor my blood pressure. I had missed half a day of work, and I sat there like some fool with ultrasound pictures in an envelope, trying to decide whether to humiliate myself twice." Benjamin's chair scraped softly as he shifted. "Lillian." "No." Her voice cracked slightly, and she hated that. "Let me finish." He stopped. She looked at him directly then. "I don't need you to tell me you didn't know. I believe that. I believe you, but I need you to understand that your not knowing did not protect me from living like you did." Benjamin's eyes reddened. He didn't wipe them, didn't look away. For once, he seemed to know better than to interrupt her pain with his own. Lillian closed the folder slowly. "That's all I wanted you to see tonight." He nodded, but he didn't move. The apartment felt smaller with his silence in it. Finally, he touched the certified receipt with 2 fingers. "This went through, my mother." Lillian didn't answer. She didn't have to. Benjamin stood up, then sat back down almost immediately, like his body had moved before his mind knew where to go. "She knew," he said. It wasn't a question. Lillian looked toward the dark hallway where the twins slept. When she spoke, her voice was tired again. Somebody knew. Benjamin stared at the receipt, and in that moment, the anger he had brought into the park finally had somewhere else to go. Not toward Lillian, not toward the twins, toward the house that had raised him. Benjamin didn't say goodbye properly. He stood up too fast, muttered something that sounded like "I'll call you," then stopped himself like he remembered that wasn't something he got to promise casually anymore. Lillian didn't walk him to the door. She stayed at the table, one hand resting on the closed folder, the other near the baby monitor. "Benjamin," she said before he reached the door. He turned. "Don't come back here angry." He nodded, not defensive, not offended, just hearing it. Then he left. The drive to Winter Park felt shorter than it should have. Benjamin didn't remember half of it. Traffic lights changed. Cars moved. The city shifted from tighter streets to wider ones, from apartment complexes to quiet neighborhoods with trimmed hedges and evenly spaced trees. His hands stayed tight on the wheel. His jaw didn't unclench. By the time he pulled up to his mother's house, the anger had settled into something colder, more focused. The house looked exactly the same. Wide, white, controlled, lights glowing softly through tall windows. Everything curated to look effortless. Benjamin sat in the car for a second, engine still running. Then he turned it off and went inside. Evelyn Vale was in the sitting room. She always was at this hour. A glass of wine rested untouched on the side table. A tablet lay across her lap, emails or reports or something equally controlled glowing on the screen. She looked up as he entered. "You're late," she said, not unkindly, just noting it. Benjamin didn't answer. He walked straight past the threshold, past the rug, past the small table she had rearranged 3 times last year because the proportions were off. "Where were you?" she asked, setting the tablet aside now. Benjamin stopped in the center of the room. He didn't sit. "Did you ever receive a certified letter addressed to me about a year ago?" Evelyn's expression didn't change immediately. That was the first thing he noticed. No confusion, no instinctive denial, just a slight pause. Then, "I receive a lot of things addressed to you." Benjamin stepped closer. This one was from Lillian. There it was. The name. Evelyn's lips pressed together faintly, the way they did when something unpleasant but manageable entered the conversation. "I see." Benjamin let out a short breath. "You see?" "Yes," she said, folding her hands loosely. "I remember something along those lines." Something along those lines. Benjamin felt something in his chest go tight. "What did you do with it?" Evelyn tilted her head slightly, studying him. "Why are you asking me this way?" "Because I need a straight answer." "And you think I don't give you straight answers?" He didn't hesitate. "Not when it comes to things you've already decided for me." That landed. Evelyn's posture shifted just slightly, not defensive, but alert. "I was protecting you," she said. Benjamin let out a hollow laugh. "From what?" Evelyn stood now, setting the wineglass aside untouched. "From distraction. From unnecessary complication during one of the most volatile periods this company has faced in years." Benjamin stared at her. She was pregnant. Evelyn didn't flinch. She claimed to be. Benjamin took another step forward. Twins. Still nothing. Just that same composed face. "I'm aware of what she wrote," Evelyn said. Benjamin's stomach dropped. "You read it." "Yes." "And you didn't think that was something I needed to know?" "I thought it was something that needed to be verified before it disrupted everything else in your life." Benjamin shook his head slowly, like he was trying to understand the language she was speaking. "Disrupted? Yes. That's what you're calling it?" Evelyn's voice stayed even. "You were managing your father's decline, the merger negotiations, investor, confidence, and 3 separate properties under restructuring. You were not in a position to handle personal drama." Benjamin's hands curled into fists. "That wasn't drama. It was a claim," she corrected, "from a woman you were no longer involved with." He stepped closer again. "You decided that. I assessed the situation. You made the decision." Evelyn held his gaze. Yes, the honesty hit harder than if she had lied. Benjamin's chest rose sharply. "She called me. She texted me. She emailed me. She drove out here." Evelyn's expression shifted slightly at that. "She came here?" "Yes." A small pause. "I wasn't informed of that." Benjamin let out a breath that sounded almost like disbelief. "You're telling me your staff turned away a pregnant woman carrying my children, and you didn't know?" Evelyn's jaw tightened just slightly. If that happened, it was handled appropriately based on the information they had. Benjamin laughed again, but there was no humor in it now. "Appropriately? Yes. Do you hear yourself?" Evelyn's voice sharpened just a fraction. "I hear a mother who ensured her son did not collapse under the weight of avoidable chaos." Benjamin went still. "Those are my children." Evelyn met his gaze. "That has not been established." "It has for me." "That is not how reality works," she said. "Not in our world." Benjamin's voice dropped. "I met them today." Evelyn blinked once. That was it. The first crack. "Where?" "At the park. Near the property." "And you're certain?" "I don't need a test to know what I saw." Evelyn folded her arms now. "That is exactly the kind of thinking I was trying to prevent." Benjamin stared at her. "You think this is about thinking?" "I think this is about control," she said. "Yours is compromised right now." "My control?" "Yes. You're reacting emotionally to a situation that should have been approached with structure." Benjamin stepped back slightly, like he needed space just to breathe. "She raised them for a year." Evelyn said nothing. Alone. Silence. "She sat in a parking lot with ultrasound pictures because she couldn't get through to me." Evelyn's eyes flickered, but her expression stayed composed. I regret that she experienced discomfort, she said. That was it. That was the sentence. Benjamin looked at her like he didn't recognize her. Discomfort. It was an unfortunate situation. No, he said, shaking his head. It was a choice. Evelyn's tone cooled. Yes. It was. The room went quiet. Heavy. Final. Benjamin swallowed hard. You don't get to decide what parts of my life are inconvenient. Evelyn's gaze didn't waver. I do when those parts threaten everything we've built. Benjamin stared at her for a long time. Then he said, quieter now. You didn't protect me. Evelyn didn't respond. You made me a stranger to my own children. That one stayed in the air, longer than anything else. Evelyn's composure didn't break, but something behind her eyes shifted. Something small, almost invisible. I made a decision with the information I had, she said. Benjamin shook his head. No, he said. You made a decision with the authority you assumed. Evelyn's lips pressed together. And I would make it again under the same circumstances. That landed like a final blow. Benjamin stood there, breathing slowly, trying to keep something from cracking open in front of her. Then he nodded once. Not agreement, not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. Okay. He turned and walked toward the door. Benjamin, Evelyn called. He stopped, but didn't turn around. If you pursue this, she said, you need to be careful. These situations don't stay private. Benjamin looked at the door in front of him, then finally spoke. They weren't private for her. He opened the door, and this time, he didn't look back. Benjamin didn't sleep much after leaving his mother's house. He got home sometime after midnight and sat in the dark living room with his phone on the coffee table, face up, waiting for it to do something. Lillian didn't call. She didn't text. Of course she didn't. There was no reason for her to know where he had gone or what had been said inside that polished Winter Park house. But he wanted her to know. That was the childish part. He wanted to tell her he had confronted Evelyn. He wanted Lillian to understand that he had not just gone home and folded the truth neatly into some private drawer. He wanted credit for being angry in the right direction. By morning, he hated himself for that. Still, by 9:30, he had already made 3 calls. Not to Lillian, to people who worked for him. That was the problem. He didn't see it at first. He stood in his office at Vail Springs with the blinds half open, watching resort guests drift below in bright clothes and sun hats, while he spoke to a private family attorney about paternity filings, then to someone about trusts, then to someone else about discreet residential leases near better schools and pediatric care. He used words like stability and security. He told himself he was being responsible. By noon, he had a list. By 2, he had turned the list into a plan. By 4, he sent Lillian a text. Can we talk tonight? I have some things I want to offer. She answered 20 minutes later. Offer? He stared at that one word longer than he should have, then typed, help. I meant help. Her reply came faster this time. Say help then. Benjamin rubbed his forehead with the heel of his hand. He deserved that too. They agreed to meet at a Panera near her clinic after she got off work, because Lillian said she wasn't bringing him to the apartment again, unless there was a reason. Benjamin arrived early and sat in a booth near the back with 2 coffees he wasn't sure she wanted. The place was busy in that tired weekday way. Nurses in scrubs, a man on a laptop taking up a 4-person table, 2 high school girls sharing a cinnamon roll and whispering over a phone. The air smelled like toasted bread and burnt coffee. Lillian walked in at 6:18 wearing navy work pants, a cream blouse, and the kind of exhaustion makeup couldn't hide. Her hair was pulled back. Her badge was still clipped to her waistband. She saw the coffees. Her eyes moved from them to him. I didn't ask for coffee. I know. I just thought. I've had enough caffeine today. Okay. He pushed 1 cup aside like it had offended her. She sat across from him, but kept her purse strap over her shoulder. That detail hurt more than he expected, like she was not planning to stay long. How are they? He asked. With my mother. I meant. I know what you meant. She leaned back slightly. They're fine. Benjamin nodded. For a second, he lost his place. He had rehearsed this in the car, calmly, carefully, but now Lillian was sitting across from him with tired eyes and guarded shoulders, and every sentence in his head sounded like a press release. I spoke to my mother, he said. Lillian's face did not change much. And? She admitted it. Lillian looked down at the table, only for a second, but he saw it. She admitted she knew about the letter. Yes, and the rest? She said she read it. She said she was protecting me. Lillian's mouth tightened at one corner. Of course she did. Benjamin waited for more, but Lillian didn't give him anything else. I'm sorry, he said. She looked back at him. He corrected himself before she could. I know, not as a key. That almost did something to her face. Almost, but not enough. What did you want to talk about? She asked. Benjamin took a breath. I want to help with the boys. You should, beyond the legal minimum. Her eyes narrowed slightly. He kept going because nerves made him stupid. I can set up a trust for them. Immediately. Education, medical, whatever they need. I can cover daycare, or hire someone full-time if that's better. There are apartments closer to the clinic with more space, safer parking, better air conditioning, or a house, if you'd rather. Stop. He stopped. Lillian stared at him across the table, not shocked, disappointed. That was worse. What? He asked, though he already knew he had done something wrong. You came here with a shopping list. No, I came here with options. For who? For you. For them. For you, she said. Benjamin sat back. That's not fair. It might not be, she said. But it's true. He looked around, aware suddenly of how public they were, though nobody seemed to care. I'm trying to make sure they have everything. They have things. They could have more. They need a father, Benjamin, not a sponsor. The sentence cut clean through the booth. He looked down at his hands. Lillian's voice lowered. Do you know what Miles eats when he's teething? He blinked. What? Do you know which one wakes up if the neighbor upstairs drops something too loud? He didn't answer. Do you know what size diapers they wear? What time they go down? Which pediatrician they see? Which one hates applesauce now even though he liked it 2 weeks ago? Benjamin swallowed. No. Then start there. I can learn those things. Yes, she said. You can, but you don't learn them by sending money ahead of yourself. He rubbed his thumb against his palm under the table. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. For the first time, Lillian's expression softened in a way that looked almost painful. I know. That was not comfort. It was just truth. Benjamin leaned forward slightly. I'm scared if I don't move fast, I'll lose more time. You already lost time. I know. No, she said, shaking her head once. You know it like a number. You don't know it like a routine yet. He sat with that. Around them, someone laughed near the drink machine. A blender whirred behind the counter. A worker called out an order number. Lillian reached into her purse and pulled out a folded paper. What is that? Benjamin asked. The lab appointment confirmation. And a list. He took it. The list was handwritten. Diaper size, formula brand, pediatrician name, nap windows, allergies, none known, words they were trying. Miles, up, mama, ball, Micah, mama, no, light. Benjamin stared at the words. Small things, huge things. You can start by reading that, she said. Not giving it to someone, not having someone make a file. You read it. I will. And Saturday morning, you can meet us at the pediatric clinic parking lot. We'll do the lab swabs. After that, maybe you can come with us to Target. They need wipes and socks. He looked up. Target? Yes, Target. He nodded quickly. Too quickly. Okay. Yes. And Benjamin? Yeah? Don't make Target weird. He almost smiled. Almost. Then realized she was serious. I won't. Lillian stood, adjusting her purse strap. He stood, too. She looked at him like she wanted to say something else, then decided against it. What? He asked softly. She shook her head. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Nothing didn't sit behind her eyes like that. She left him there with the list in his hand and 2 untouched coffees on the table. Benjamin looked down again. Diaper size, formula brand, nap windows. Tiny, ordinary facts. The first real inheritance his sons had given him was not love. It was homework. Benjamin read the list 3 times before Saturday, not because it was complicated, because every time he thought he understood it, something about it made him feel worse. Diaper size, 4, formula brand, nap windows, Miles says up. Micah says, light. These were not facts a father should be learning from folded paper in a Panera booth. Saturday morning, he parked at the pediatric clinic 15 minutes early and stayed in the car with both hands resting on his knees. The building sat in a strip plaza between a dental office and a place that sold uniforms for healthcare workers. A faded banner near the entrance advertised school physicals. A woman in scrubs smoked behind the building beside a dumpster, looking like she had already been tired before the day started. Benjamin watched families come and go, mothers with diaper bags, fathers carrying car seats, grandmothers holding little hands. Nobody looked like they had prepared a board presentation for parenthood. Then Lillian pulled in. Her car needed a wash. There was one sunshade peeling slightly at the corner, and a small stuffed toy was visible through the back window. Diane Carter was in the passenger seat. Benjamin got out too fast, then made himself slow down. Lillian stepped out first. She didn't smile. "Morning," she said. "Morning." Diane got out next and gave him one long look over the roof of the car. "Benjamin." "Mrs. Carter." "Diane is fine," she said. It did not sound like permission. It sounded like a test. Lillian opened the back door and leaned in. Miles protested immediately, kicking one leg, unhappy about being paused before he understood where he was going. Micah sat quietly, watching Benjamin through the gap between Lillian's arm and the car seat. Benjamin stayed where he was. He wanted to help. He also did not want to reach wrong. Lillian noticed. "You can grab the diaper bag." "Right." He moved quickly to the trunk after she popped it open. The diaper bag was heavier than he expected, packed tight with bottles, wipes, snacks, extra clothes, and things he could not identify yet. He slung it over his shoulder. Diane watched him. "You ever carried one of those before?" "No, ma'am." That was all she said. Inside, the clinic waiting room smelled like hand sanitizer, floor cleaner, and faintly of Cheerios. A cartoon played low on a mounted television. A little girl coughed into her sleeve, while her mother filled out forms on a clipboard. Lillian checked them in. Benjamin stood behind her with the diaper bag. Not beside her, behind her. He noticed that too. When the nurse called them back, Miles reached for Lillian, then twisted toward the fish stickers on the wall. Micah leaned into Diane's shoulder, his small hand gripping her blouse. The DNA swab itself was quick, too quick for the amount of dread Benjamin had carried into it. Miles opened his mouth after Lillian made a silly sound. Micah resisted, turning his face away until Diane whispered something Benjamin couldn't hear. When it was Benjamin's turn, he let the technician swab the inside of his cheek, feeling ridiculous for how serious his body made it. A cotton swab, a plastic tube, a label, 1 year of absence, reduced to proof. Afterward, in the parking lot, Lillian adjusted Miles on her hip while Diane buckled Micah into the car seat. "Target?" Lillian asked. Benjamin nodded. "Yes, you can follow us." He wanted to say they could ride together. He didn't. At Target, he made his first mistake before they got through the automatic doors. He reached for the stroller in the trunk and unfolded it wrong. One side clicked, the other didn't. He pushed down harder. Lillian said, "Don't force it." "I'm not." "You are." He stopped. Miles was watching him from Lillian's arms with open interest, like Benjamin was the morning's entertainment. Micah rested against Diane, thumb near his mouth. Benjamin stepped back. "Show me." Lillian hesitated, then used one hand to release a small latch he hadn't seen. The stroller opened smoothly. "There," she said. "Okay, you have to listen for the second click." He nodded. Embarrassed. Second click. Inside Target, the cold air hit them hard after the parking lot heat. The store smelled like popcorn from the front cafe and new plastic from the seasonal aisle. A display of pool floats sat near the entrance, bright and unnecessary. Miles immediately pointed. "Ball." "That's not a ball," Lillian said. "Ball." "Everything is a ball right now," Diane said. Benjamin pushed the cart because Lillian said he could, and somehow that felt like being handed a responsibility with no instructions. He moved too slowly at first, then too fast. He almost clipped an end cap of sunscreen. Lillian gave him a look. "Sorry," he said. "You don't have to apologize every 12 seconds." "Sorry." Diane made a small sound behind them. Benjamin shut his mouth. In the baby aisle, Lillian reached for wipes. Store brand. Benjamin looked at the price tags, then at the name brand boxes. "These are better, right?" he asked, picking one up. Lillian didn't even turn. They're wipes. I just mean, I know what you mean. He set the box down. Miles started fussing in the stroller, reaching both arms up. Up, he said. Benjamin froze slightly. The list. Miles says up. Lillian was comparing formula prices. Diane had stepped a few feet away to grab socks. Benjamin looked at Lillian. He's saying up. He said, I hear him. Should the first? She turned. For a moment, she seemed to measure something. Then she said, You can try. Benjamin bent carefully and unbuckled the straps too slowly. Miles got impatient and arched his back. Wait, Benjamin murmured, trying not to panic. Support his back, Lillian said. I am. With your hand, Benjamin. He adjusted. Miles came out of the stroller with cracker crumbs on his shirt and no respect for Benjamin's nerves. He grabbed Benjamin's collar immediately and pulled. Oh, Benjamin said, surprised. Miles leaned back, studying him, then slapped one small hand against Benjamin's chin. Diane returned with socks. Well, she said, he likes your face enough to hit it. Lillian looked away, but Benjamin saw her mouth twitch. It was the smallest thing. He held on to it anyway. For 5 minutes, he carried Miles down the aisle while Lillian picked out what they needed. Not confidently, not gracefully, but carefully. Miles kept reaching for shelves, and Benjamin kept turning his body to block him. Once, Miles tried to put Benjamin's collar in his mouth. No, buddy, Benjamin whispered. Buddy. The word slipped out before he could stop it. Lillian heard it. She didn't say anything. Micah watched from the stroller, serious and quiet. When Benjamin crouched later and offered him a soft toy Lillian had handed over, Micah looked at the toy, then Benjamin, then took it without smiling. That's good, Lillian said. Benjamin looked up. It is? For Micah? Yes. He nodded like she had just explained something sacred. At checkout, Benjamin reached for his wallet. Lillian placed her card in the reader before he could. I can pay, he said. I know. Lillian. She entered her PIN. This is Target. Not a custody hearing. He stepped back. The cashier pretended not to hear. On the way out, Miles started crying because Lillian would not let him hold the receipt. Micah dropped the toy and said, very clearly, No. Benjamin bent to pick it up. This time he wiped it with a baby wipe before offering it back. Lillian noticed. So did Diane. Nobody praised him. That was fine. Outside, the heat wrapped around them again. Benjamin helped load bags into Lillian's trunk, then stood awkwardly near the stroller while she buckled Miles into the car. Micah looked at him from his car seat, then lifted one hand. Not quite a wave. Not quite reaching, just a small opening. Benjamin lifted his hand back. Bye, Micah. Micah stared at him, then turned toward Lillian. Still, Benjamin felt it somewhere deep. Lillian closed the car door and looked at him across the roof. The results take a few days, she said. I know. We'll talk after. He nodded. Then, before she got in, she added, You did okay today. Benjamin almost ruined it by asking what okay meant. He didn't. He just nodded again. Thank you. Lillian got in the car. Diane looked at him through the passenger window, expression unreadable. As they pulled away, Benjamin stayed in the parking lot, holding the folded stroller instruction pamphlet Lillian had shoved into his hand before leaving. He had money for lawyers, trusts, and houses, but that afternoon, he sat in his car outside Target and watched a YouTube video on how to fold the exact stroller model without breaking it. Benjamin almost didn't go. He sat in his car outside the Eatonville neighborhood for a full 5 minutes with the engine idling, staring at a street that looked nothing like the spaces he was used to entering. No gate, no guard, no intercom, just a row of single-story homes, a couple of older sedans parked along the curb, a basketball hoop leaning slightly to one side, and music playing from somewhere he couldn't see. Lillian had texted him the address that morning. Come if you want. Family cookout, 3 p.m. Don't dress like you're going to a meeting. He had stared at that last sentence longer than anything else. Now, sitting there in a plain dark t-shirt and jeans that still probably looked too new, he wondered if he had already gotten it wrong. He turned off the engine, got out, walked up. The smell hit him first. Grill smoke, sweet sauce, something fried, something seasoned in a way he couldn't name but recognized as real. Voices overlapped, laughter, someone calling for a plate, a child yelling about a ball again. Benjamin stepped into the yard and immediately felt it. Not hostility, not exactly. Awareness. People noticed him, didn't stop what they were doing, but noticed. Marcus Carter was the first to walk over. Benjamin recognized him from a photo Lillian had once shown him, back when things were different. Marcus looked him up and down once, slow. "You made it." Benjamin nodded. "Yeah." Marcus extended his hand. Benjamin shook it. Firm, measured. "You eat?" Marcus asked. "Not yet." "That's good. You're gonna need to." It wasn't a threat, but it wasn't exactly welcoming either. Marcus nodded toward the side of the yard. "Food's over there, drinks in the cooler. Don't go grabbing nothing without asking Aunt Renee first, or she'll look at you like you stole something." Benjamin almost smiled. "Got it." Marcus held his gaze a second longer, then said, quieter, "They're around back." Benjamin followed the direction. Lillian was sitting in a folding chair near the back patio, one leg crossed under her, Miles on her lap, Micah playing with a plastic cup on a blanket near her feet. She looked up when she saw him. Didn't smile, didn't frown, just took him in. "You came. You said I could." "That's not the same thing." He nodded, accepting that. "I wasn't sure if I should." "You weren't," she said. "But you're here." That sounded like something that would matter later. Benjamin stood there for a second too long before realizing he hadn't sat. "Sit," Lillian said, nodding toward an empty folding chair. He pulled it closer, careful not to scrape it too loud against the concrete. Miles looked at him immediately. Recognition flickered, not full, but not nothing either. "Up," Miles said, reaching one hand out halfway. Benjamin froze. Lillian noticed. "He does that with everybody," she said, but her tone said she was watching how he would respond. Benjamin leaned forward slowly. "Hey, Miles." Miles blinked at him, then grabbed his shirt collar again when Benjamin lifted him. Less hesitation this time, more curiosity. Benjamin adjusted his grip like he had practiced. Not perfect, but better. "Okay," Lillian said quietly. He glanced at her. She gave the smallest nod. Across the yard, someone called out, "Lillian, you want another plate?" "I'm good," she called back. Then, to Benjamin, softer, "You're holding him too tight." He loosened slightly. "Like that?" "Yeah." Miles leaned back, studying his face again, then patted his cheek. Benjamin exhaled slowly through his nose. "You like hitting me, huh?" Miles smiled. A real one. Benjamin felt it land somewhere deep and unfamiliar. Aunt Renee approached without warning. She was holding a plate piled with food, and wearing the kind of expression that said she had already formed opinions. "So this him?" Lillian didn't answer. Benjamin did. "Yes, ma'am." Aunt Renee looked him over like he was something she might return if she kept the receipt. "You eat pork?" Benjamin blinked. Yes." "Good. Sit down then." She handed him the plate before he could refuse. Benjamin took it carefully. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," she said, already walking away. "Taste it first." Marcus laughed from somewhere behind him. Benjamin sat back down with Miles still in his arms, and the plate balanced awkwardly on his knee. Lillian reached over and took the plate from him without asking, setting it on the small table beside her. "Eat after," she said. "Right." Micah crawled closer on the blanket, watching Benjamin carefully. Benjamin lowered himself slightly. "Hey, Micah." Micah didn't smile, but he didn't move away either. He just watched, evaluating. Diane Carter stepped out onto the patio, wiping her hands on a towel. She saw Benjamin, saw Miles in his arms. Her expression shifted. Subtle, but there. "You look less lost today," she said. Benjamin nodded, trying not to be. "That's a start." She moved past them, adjusting something on the table, but her presence stayed close enough to feel. Time moved differently in that yard. Slower, louder, real. Benjamin ate eventually, balancing a fork while Miles tried to grab it. He got sauce on his shirt. Someone handed him napkins before he asked. A cousin he hadn't been introduced to yet nodded at him once, like acknowledgement had been earned just enough to exist. Nobody treated him like he didn't exist. Nobody treated him like he belonged either. It was something in between, and for the first time in his life, Benjamin understood that in between was something you had to sit in without trying to fix it immediately. At one point, Lillian leaned closer while Micah climbed into her lap. "You're doing better," she said. Benjamin looked at her. "Better than what?" "Yesterday." He nodded. I watched a video on the stroller. That almost made her laugh. Almost. Of course you did. I didn't want to mess it up again. You will, she said. Yeah, but you'll learn. He looked at her a second longer than he meant to. She noticed. Looked away first. Later, as the sun dipped lower and the air softened just a little, Miles fell asleep against Benjamin's chest. No warning, no build-up. Just asleep. Benjamin went still, like movement might break something. Lillian saw it. Didn't speak. Didn't take him back. Just watched. Micah leaned against her shoulder, half asleep too, one hand clutching her shirt. The yard was quieter now. Not silent. Just softer. Benjamin looked down at Miles, then up at Lillian. There was something there. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something that hadn't been there at the park. Lillian held his gaze for a second, then said quietly, "Don't get used to this part being easy." Benjamin nodded. "I won't," but he didn't move, because for the first time, something about this felt like it might be real if he didn't rush it. By Monday morning, Benjamin's name was on a gossip page, not one of the serious business sites that watched Vale Springs because of land deals and quarterly rumors, not the hospitality newsletter that cared about resort occupancy and expansion permits. This was uglier. A local entertainment account with too many followers and no real concern for whether anything it posted was true. The first photo was blurry. Benjamin standing in Lillian's family yard in Eatonville, with Miles asleep against his chest. The caption was worse. Orlando billionaire Benjamin Vale spotted playing family man with mystery woman and twins. Sources say she's been keeping quiet for a reason. Lillian saw it in the clinic break room between checking supply orders and answering a message from her supervisor about insurance forms. She didn't even understand what she was looking at first. Her eyes moved over the photo once, then again. Then she saw the comments. Of course she secured the bag. Those babies look like him. Though, she waited until the money was right. This why rich men need NDAs. He better get a test. Something cold went through her. Not shock. Something more familiar than that. That sick little drop in the stomach that comes when strangers feel entitled to make your life into something dirty. Lillian. She turned her phone face down so quickly it made a slap against the table. One of the medical assistants stood near the microwave with a lean cuisine in her hand, pretending not to have seen. "You okay?" "Yeah," Lillian said. "Too fast." The woman hesitated. "You sure?" Lillian picked up her water bottle. "I'm good." She wasn't, but she had 6 minutes left on break, 2 patient schedules to correct, and twins who needed diapers picked up after work. Falling apart was not on the calendar. Her phone buzzed again. Then again. Then again. She didn't look. Benjamin saw it 11 minutes later, not because he was scrolling, because his communications director walked into his office without knocking. He looked up from a development packet and knew immediately something had happened. What? The woman placed her phone on his desk. "You need to see this." Benjamin read the post, then the comments. His face went still in that way people around him had learned to fear. "Take it down," he said. "We don't control the account." "Then contact them." "We can try, but reposts are already moving." He stood. "Where did this come from?" "We don't know yet." "Someone at the cookout, maybe. A neighbor. A guest. Could be anyone." Benjamin's jaw tightened. The photo. Miles sleeping against him. That private fragile thing. Dragged online and turned into a punchline. "Draft a statement," he said. The communications director nodded. "What kind?" "A direct one." "Benjamin, I said direct." She paused. "What are we confirming?" He looked at her. "My children." Her expression changed, carefully. "The DNA results aren't back." "I don't care. Legally, you should." That stopped him, but only barely. He picked up his phone. Lillian hadn't called. Of course, she hadn't. He dialed. She didn't answer. He dialed again. No answer. Then a text came through. "I'm at work." He typed back too quickly. "I saw it. I'm handling it." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "Don't." Benjamin stared at the word. "Don't what?" This time her answer came fast. "Don't handle me." They met in the clinic parking lot after Lillian's shift. She came out in the same navy work pants, her badge still clipped at her waist. her face set in a calm that was too controlled to be peace. Benjamin was waiting beside his car. He had changed out of his suit jacket, but still looked like somebody who had spent the day in rooms with filtered air and legal language. Lillian stopped several feet away. "You called 6 times. 3. Same thing when I'm working. I was worried. I was embarrassed," she said. "There's a difference." He absorbed that. But badly. She could see it in his face. "I'm trying to stop this." "You can't stop it. I can make a statement." "No, Lillian, no." A car pulled into a nearby space, and both of them went quiet until the driver got out and walked toward the clinic entrance. Lillian lowered her voice. "You putting out some billionaire press statement about your private life is not going to make people see me as human." Benjamin looked hurt by that. "That's not what I'm doing." "It is if you don't listen." He stepped closer, then stopped himself. "What do you want me to do? Say nothing while people talk about you like that? I want you to understand that defending me publicly doesn't repair what happened privately." His mouth tightened. "I know that." "No, you know the sentence. You don't know what it means yet." He looked away toward the road, where cars moved steadily past the plaza, brake lights glowing in the late afternoon heat. Lillian watched him. She could see him fighting the urge to act, to call someone, to threaten someone, to fix the visible thing because the invisible thing was harder. "My family has already seen it," she said. Benjamin turned back. "Diane?" "My mother, Marcus, Aunt Renee, people from church, people from Eatonville who don't know me but know enough to have an opinion." "I'm sorry." She shook her head slightly. "Today, I had a patient's grandmother look at me like she recognized me, but didn't want to say from where." Benjamin's face changed, and I still had to smile and ask if she had the updated insurance card. The words came out flat. That made them worse. Benjamin looked down. "I didn't think about your work." "I know." That answer held no surprise, no cruelty either, just the tired record of how often he had not thought past himself. "I'll take responsibility," he said. "How?" "Publicly. Clearly. I'll say you did nothing wrong." She gave a small, humorless laugh. "That right there." "What?" "You think your word makes me clean." Benjamin flinched. Lillian shifted her purse on her shoulder. "I don't need you to announce that I'm respectable. I already was before the internet got bored." He didn't answer. For a moment, the only sound was traffic and the distant automatic door of the clinic opening and closing. Then Benjamin said, quieter, "Miles was asleep." Lillian's eyes flicked up. "In the picture," he said, "he was asleep on me." "I know." That felt. He stopped, struggling. That felt like something I wasn't supposed to lose. Lillian's face softened for half a second. Then she looked away. "That's what happens when people take private things." He nodded. "And your mother warned you this would happen, didn't she?" Benjamin didn't answer fast enough. Lillian saw it. "She did," she said. "Situations like this don't stay private." Lillian's jaw tightened. "Situations like this." I didn't agree with her, but she knows the world she helped build. That landed hard. Benjamin stepped back slightly. Lillian looked exhausted now, not just from work, from being looked at, discussed, turned into somebody's theory. "I don't want a statement tonight," she said. "I want the post reported. Quietly. I want the photo of Miles removed if possible. I want you not to say anything about the boys until the legal part is done, and I want you to stop calling me like panic gives you priority." Benjamin nodded slowly. "Okay." She studied him, as if checking whether the okay had weight. "And Benjamin?" "Yeah? If this gets worse, don't expect gratitude because you finally stand next to the mess." He swallowed. "I won't." But as Lillian walked to her car, he knew she was right not to trust that yet, because standing next to the mess was still not the same as understanding how long she had been standing in it alone. The post came down by Wednesday. Not completely. Nothing online ever really disappeared. Screenshots were still floating around. A few smaller accounts had reposted it with worse captions and less shame. But the original photo of Miles asleep on Benjamin's chest was gone, and for that, Lillian let herself breathe a little easier. Not easy, just easier. Then Thursday morning came, and Benjamin's world found a new way to touch hers. Lillian was at her desk in the pediatric clinic, sorting through a stack of referral forms, when Marcus texted her a link with no explanation. That was never good. She opened it between phone calls. The headline was from a local business journal. Vail Springs Resorts moves forward on Orange County land partnership near Eatonville corridor. Lillian read the first paragraph twice, then the second. By the third, she stopped pretending her hands were steady. The article used all the pretty words: mixed use, revitalization, hospitality-adjacent development, workforce pathways, entertainment corridor. There was a quote from Benjamin near the bottom. Nothing cruel, nothing obvious. That made it worse. We believe thoughtful growth can support both visitors and local families while strengthening Central Florida's long-term economic future. Lillian stared at the sentence until the words stopped meaning anything. Her phone buzzed again. "Marcus, you seen this?" She typed back. "Yeah." He replied immediately. "That's his company, right?" Lillian didn't answer. Because, yes, it was. Benjamin knew about the article before Lillian texted him. He was in the conference room on the 22nd floor of the Vail Springs corporate office, seated beneath a screen full of renderings that made the project look cleaner than real life ever did. Walking paths, retail space, a boutique hotel, a heritage-inspired community plaza that made his stomach turn the moment he saw the phrase. Across the table, board members spoke in calm voices about acquisition timing, tax, incentives, road access, projected guest overflow, and underutilized parcels. Benjamin heard all of it differently now. Underutilized. That was how men in expensive chairs described land before they remembered people lived near it. His mother sat 3 seats away, composed as ever, a slim folder open in front of her. She had not spoken to him privately since the night he walked out of her house. In meetings, though, she behaved as if nothing had changed. That might have been the most insulting part. One of the board members pointed at the rendering. "The community component is useful optically, but we should avoid overcommitting on programming until final approvals." Benjamin looked up. "What does that mean?" The room shifted slightly. The man cleared his throat. "It means the cultural partnership language helps with public reception, but ongoing funding should remain flexible." "Flexible," Benjamin said. His mother's eyes moved toward him. The board member nodded. "Exactly." Benjamin leaned back. Flexible meant cut later. Promise now. Withdraw quietly. He would have understood that even before Lillian. He just might not have cared enough. His phone vibrated on the table. He glanced down. "Lillian, did you know?" His chest tightened. He didn't answer right away. That was the mistake. 3 seconds became 10. 10 became 30. By the time he typed, "I'm in a meeting about it now," he already knew how it looked. Her reply came fast. "Of course you are." He stared at the screen. His mother noticed. "Problem?" she asked. Benjamin locked his phone. "Yes," he said. Then he looked back at the rendering. "Yes, there is." Lillian didn't wait for him to call that night. She called him first from her car outside daycare, engine running, air conditioning fighting the Florida heat, while Miles kicked the back of her seat and Micah hummed softly to himself. Benjamin answered on the first ring. "Lillian, don't say my name like that." He paused. "Okay, I saw the article. I know. You knew about the deal." "Yes." Her silence sharpened. "I knew about the early version," he said quickly. "Not the final language, not the article timing. That's what you're going with?" "It's the truth." Miles made a frustrated sound behind her. Lillian turned halfway. "Hold on, baby." Benjamin went quiet. That made her angrier somehow, because now he was learning when to be quiet. "Now." She faced forward again. "Do you know what that corridor means to people?" She asked. "Yes." "No. You know what it means on a map." He didn't answer. She kept going because if she stopped, she might cry, and she refused to cry in a daycare parking lot with 2 tired babies and a man on the phone who could ruin whole neighborhoods through meetings that served sparkling water. That area is not empty just because your people found a way to describe it nicely. There are families there, small businesses, churches, old houses people are barely holding on to because taxes keep climbing and rent keeps eating everybody alive. "I know. Stop saying that." He breathed in. "Okay. You don't get to stand in my cousin's yard holding Miles and then sit in a conference room while your company turns our history into a plaza concept." The line went quiet. Miles kicked the seat again. "Ball," he said. Though there was no ball, Lillian closed her eyes for 1 second. Micah said. No, softly, like he was agreeing with the mood. Benjamin's voice came lower. You're right. She laughed once. Short, tired. That was too easy. It's not easy. It sounds easy. I don't know what else to say yet. Maybe don't say anything. Maybe do something. He sat with that. She could hear the faint sound of traffic on his end, like he was outside now. I challenged it today, he said. Challenged what? The language, the programming cuts, the way they're framing the cultural component. And they weren't happy. Lillian looked out the windshield at a mother walking out of daycare with a toddler on her hip and a backpack dragging from one hand. Were they scared? She asked. Benjamin didn't answer. That told her enough. Then you didn't challenge it hard enough. He let out a breath. Lillian, no, listen to me. I am not asking you to save Eatonville. I don't need you riding in with your guilt and a foundation check, but I need you to understand why this makes me feel stupid. Stupid? Yes, she said, voice tightening. Because for 1 second at that cookout, I let myself think maybe you could stand in my world without taking something from it. Benjamin said nothing. That silence was not empty. It was bruised. Good, she thought, then hated herself for thinking it. I'm not trying to take anything from you, he said finally, but your company is. The words hung there, clear, unavoidable. Lillian looked in the rearview mirror. Miles had stopped kicking. Micah was watching her reflection. She softened her voice, but not the truth. And you are your company when it's convenient, Benjamin. That's the part men like you always want to separate. You're just Benjamin when you want forgiveness. You're Vel Springs when you want power. He inhaled sharply. She had hurt him. She knew it. She also knew she meant it. I have to get them home, she said. Can I see them this weekend? The question came out small, almost careful. Lillian looked down at her hand on the steering wheel. Part of her wanted to punish him. Part of her knew the twins should not become tools in a fight they did not understand. We'll see, she said. That means no. It means I don't know. He accepted it. Barely. Okay. She ended the call before either of them could make it worse. For a moment, she sat there with the phone in her lap, the daycare receipt tucked into the cup holder, and the article still open on her screen. Behind her, Miles said, Up. Micah said, Light. Lillian looked at them in the mirror, then started the car. Across town, Benjamin stood alone on the balcony outside the conference floor. Looking down at the city his family had learned to measure in parcels. For the first time, the view did not look like inheritance. It looked like evidence. Benjamin didn't go home after the call. He stayed on that balcony longer than he should have. The evening air thick and warm, the hum of traffic below steady and indifferent. Inside, the conference room lights were still on. He could see silhouettes moving, board members finishing conversations, collecting folders, closing deals that didn't feel like deals anymore. He used to understand that room. Now it felt like a place where things were decided without anyone having to say out loud what those decisions would cost. His phone buzzed once. A message from his communications director. Press is asking for comment on the development timeline. He stared at it, then locked his phone without answering. The next morning, he walked into the boardroom before anyone else. No assistant, no printed packets, just him, standing at the long table with both hands pressed against the polished surface, staring at the same renderings from yesterday. Walking paths, retail space, heritage-inspired plaza. He let out a slow breath. Then, he pulled one of the chairs back and sat. When the others filed in, they noticed immediately. Something had shifted. Evelyn entered last. She didn't acknowledge him directly. She took her seat, opened her folder, and said, Let's begin. Benjamin didn't wait. We're not moving forward with this deal as it stands. The room went quiet. Not shocked, alert. One of the board members leaned forward slightly. We're in advanced stages, Benjamin. That's not a casual adjustment. I know. Then what are you saying? Benjamin looked at the rendering again, then back at them. I'm saying we either restructure the community component into something real, something funded and protected long term, or we step away entirely. A pause, then a short, controlled exhale from across the table. That's not realistic, another member said. It is, if we decide it is. It affects margins. It affects people, Benjamin said. The words came out sharper than he intended, or maybe exactly as sharp as they needed to be. Evelyn closed her folder slowly. This is not the time to let personal distractions influence corporate decisions. Benjamin didn't look at her right away. Then he did. This was always personal, he said. We just didn't say it out loud. A few people shifted in their seats. The first board member spoke again. If you're proposing additional community investment, we can review numbers. But walking away from the deal is not on the table. It is for me. That landed hard, because Benjamin didn't say things like that lightly. Evelyn's voice cooled. You don't make unilateral decisions. I'm not trying to. Then stop talking like you are. Benjamin sat back. For a moment, he almost backed down. Not fully, just enough to soften it, rephrase it, turn it into something that could pass through the room without resistance. That was his old habit. Translate discomfort into language everyone could live with. But then he thought about Lillian in the parking lot. Your veil springs when you want power. He leaned forward again. If we move forward without changing it, I won't sign off on it. Silence. This time, it stretched, because now it wasn't about language. It was about consequence. One of the older board members cleared his throat. You understand what that means? Yes. You're risking investor confidence. Yes. You're risking your position. Benjamin held his gaze. I know. Evelyn's eyes stayed on him. Steady, calculating. You're doing this because of her, she said. Benjamin didn't flinch. I'm doing this because I finally understand what we've been doing. That's convenient timing. That doesn't make it wrong. Evelyn leaned back slightly. Or it makes you impulsive. Benjamin shook his head once. No. Impulsive would have been pretending I didn't see it. The room held its breath. Evelyn studied him, not as a son, as a liability. Then you'll need to prepare for the fallout, she said. I am, because it won't be quiet. I don't need it to be. That was new. Even to him, Evelyn's expression shifted. Just a fraction. Not approval, recognition. The meeting didn't resolve cleanly. There were numbers thrown around, timelines questioned, alternatives suggested. Voices stayed controlled, but the tension underneath them thickened. By the end, nothing had been finalized, but everything had changed. Benjamin didn't call Lillian right away. That was deliberate, not avoidance. Restraint. He knew the instinct now. To rush, to explain, to hand her his decision like proof that he understood. She had already told him that wasn't enough. So instead, he drove, not back to the office, not home. He drove past the corridor mentioned in the article, past the smaller houses, the auto shops, the corner store with faded signage, a church with a sign out front that read, Community Prayer Night, all welcome. He slowed at a light and looked at a woman walking with grocery bags in both hands, a child trailing behind her, trying to keep up. This wasn't a rendering. This wasn't flexible. This was what the deal would press against. He sat at the light, longer than necessary. The car behind him honked once. He moved. That evening, he texted Lillian. Not long, not polished. I pushed back on the deal today. Hard. It's not settled yet, but I didn't agree to move forward as it is. He stared at the message for a second, before sending it. Then he set his phone down on the passenger seat and drove. It buzzed 10 minutes later. He didn't check it immediately. When he did, her message was short. Okay, that was it. No praise, no relief, no shift, just acknowledgement. Benjamin exhaled slowly. He hadn't expected more, but a small part of him had hoped. He turned into his driveway and parked, leaving the engine running for a moment. The house looked the same as always. Clean, quiet, controlled, but something about it didn't fit him the same way anymore. He picked up his phone again. Typed, paused, deleted, then finally sent. Can I see the boys this weekend? Even just for a little while. He stared at the screen, waiting. Inside the house, everything was still. Across town, Lillian stood in her kitchen with one twin on her hip and the other tugging at her leg, her phone in her hand, reading his message. She didn't answer right away, not because she didn't know what to say, because she knew exactly what it meant now when she did. And this time, she wasn't going to respond without deciding what it would cost her. Lillian didn't answer Benjamin's text until the next morning. By then, Miles had woken up with a cough. Not the kind of cough that made her panic immediately, but the kind that made her stop in the hallway and listen before she opened the bedroom door. Wet, uneven, followed by a tired little whimper that did not sound like him. Micah was sitting up in his crib too, cheeks flushed, hair damp near his forehead, staring at the nightlight like it had personally disappointed him. "Oh no," Lillian whispered. Miles coughed again. Then Micah started crying. By 8:30, both boys had low fevers. By 9, Lillian had called the pediatric nurse line. By 10, she was standing in the kitchen wearing yesterday's t-shirt, measuring children's medicine with one eye on the clock and the other on Miles, who was lying on the rug with his face pressed against a stuffed bear he usually threw across the room. Her phone buzzed. "Benjamin, I don't want to pressure you. Just checking in." Lillian stared at the message. Micah cried from the high chair, a weak, offended cry because he had rejected the banana she gave him, but was still mad she had taken it away. She picked up the phone, typed, deleted, typed again. "They're sick." Benjamin called immediately. She almost didn't answer. Then Miles coughed so hard he scared himself, and something in her gave out. She answered. "Don't panic," she said first. "I'm not. You sound like you're standing up." "I am." She closed her eyes. "Benjamin, what do they need?" "I don't know yet. Nurse said fluids, monitor fever, call back if breathing changes or they won't drink." "I can come." Lillian looked at the kitchen counter. Medicine bottle, thermometer, half-empty Pedialyte, a grocery receipt she had not thrown away. Her first instinct was no, not because he shouldn't come, because letting him come meant admitting she could use another adult in the room. Micah cried harder. Miles whimpered from the rug. Lillian pressed 2 fingers to her forehead. "Fine," she said, "but don't come in here making noise. And don't bring a bunch of stuff unless I ask. What do you need?" She hated how fast the answer came. "Pedialyte, the clear kind if they have it. Children's fever reducer, dye-free. Saline spray, more wipes, and crackers. Plain ones. I'm on it." "And Benjamin?" "Yeah? Don't buy the whole pharmacy." There was a tiny pause. "I won't." He bought more than she asked for. Not the whole pharmacy, but close enough that when he showed up 40 minutes later with 2 bags from CVS and 1 from Publix, Lillian opened the door and just looked at him. He looked down at the bags. I panicked, in a controlled way. She was too tired not to almost smile. "Come in." The apartment was warm, despite the air conditioning. The twins had turned the living room into a small disaster. Blankets on the floor, tissues near the couch, a sippy cup leaking slowly beside the coffee table. Benjamin stepped inside and stopped, not because he was judging, because the sound of both boys sick at once seemed to hit him physically. Miles was curled on the couch, cheeks red, eyes glassy. Micah was on Lillian's hip, breathing through his mouth, his head heavy against her shoulder. Benjamin's voice changed. "Oh, buddy." Miles opened his eyes at the sound. Not fully, just enough. "Ben," he mumbled. It wasn't Daddy. It wasn't even Benjamin. But Lillian saw Benjamin hear it. She saw him swallow it carefully. "Hey, Miles," he said, keeping his voice low. "I brought crackers." Miles closed his eyes again like crackers were not impressive under current conditions. "Put the bags in the kitchen," Lillian said. Benjamin did. He took out the things carefully, reading labels like there would be a test. Lillian stood beside him with Micah still pressed to her chest, watching. "This one?" he asked, holding up the medicine. "Yes." "How much?" "I know how much. I wasn't." "I know." She exhaled. "Sorry." He shook his head. "Don't apologize." That silence sat between them for a second. Then Micah coughed against her shoulder. Benjamin looked at him. "Can I hold him while you measure?" Lillian hesitated. Micah had been clingy all morning. "He might not want you." "That's okay." She shifted Micah carefully toward him. Micah resisted at first, fingers grabbing Lillian's shirt. "I know," she murmured. "I'm right here." Benjamin held out his arms, but didn't pull. He waited. That mattered. Micah fussed, then leaned awkwardly into him, still watching Lillian like he had been betrayed. Benjamin held him too stiffly for about 3 seconds, then adjusted, supporting his back the way Lillian had corrected him before. Micah's head dropped against Benjamin's shoulder. Benjamin went still. Lillian turned away and measured the medicine, not because she didn't see, because she did. The day narrowed into small tasks: temperatures, medicine, fluids, diapers, changing Miles's shirt after he spit up apple juice, trying to get Micah to drink from the blue cup instead of the green one, then discovering that sick Micah apparently hated both. Benjamin did not perform helpfulness. That was what Lillian noticed. He did not narrate what he was doing. He did not ask if she saw him wiping the table, or rinsing the sticky cup, or folding the damp towel over the chair. He just did it. Awkwardly sometimes, but quietly. Around 7, Miles's fever climbed enough that Lillian called the nurse line again. Benjamin stood in the kitchen holding Micah, listening to Lillian say, "No, his breathing isn't labored. He's drinking a little. Wet diaper at 5:30. Yes, both of them. No rash." The confidence in her voice made him feel two things at once, admiration and grief, because she had learned all of this without him. After the call, Lillian leaned against the counter. They said monitor. If it hits 104 or breathing changes, we go in. I can drive. I know. She didn't say no. That was not forgiveness. But it was something. By 10, the apartment was dim, except for the kitchen light and the glow from the baby monitor. Miles was asleep on the couch with one hand around Benjamin's finger. Micah was asleep against Lillian, finally breathing easier. Neither adult moved. The television was on mute. Some late-night cooking show showed a woman smiling over a bowl of pasta nobody in the room cared about. Benjamin looked wrecked. His shirt had formula on one sleeve. His hair was a mess from Miles grabbing it earlier. There was a cracker stuck to the side of his shoe. Lillian saw all of it. "You can go," she said softly. Benjamin looked over. "I know." But he didn't move. Miles stirred, tightening his small hand around Benjamin's finger. Benjamin looked down at him, then back at Lillian. "I'm staying unless you tell me to leave." Lillian should have said something sharp, something safe. Instead, she looked at Micah asleep against her chest, then at Miles holding onto Benjamin like his body had decided something his mind didn't know yet. The room was too quiet for pretending, so she said, "Then stay quiet." Benjamin nodded. "I can do that." And for once, he did. By midnight, the fevers had come down, not gone, just down enough for Lillian's shoulders to drop a little. Miles was finally in his crib, one hand tucked under his cheek, still breathing heavy through his nose. Micah had fought sleep longer, blinking at the ceiling like he didn't trust the night, but even he gave in after Lillian rubbed his back in slow circles and hummed something low under her breath. Benjamin stood in the doorway of the twins' room, not inside it. He had learned that part. Don't crowd. Don't make the space yours before it has room for you. Lillian eased the door almost closed, leaving the small gap she always left so hallway light could slip in. For a few seconds, neither of them moved. The apartment looked worse than it had earlier. Tissues on the coffee table, medicine cups near the sink, a damp towel over the back of a chair, the CVS bag slumped open on the kitchen floor. Benjamin bent to pick them up. "Leave it," Lillian said. He froze, not offended, just checking. She rubbed both hands over her face. "I mean, just leave it for now, okay?" Her voice was rough from the long day. "I need air." Benjamin nodded and followed her quietly to the front door. Outside, the apartment steps still held the day's heat. The breeze was weak, carrying the smell of wet pavement, car exhaust, and somebody's laundry detergent from a dryer vent nearby. Lillian sat on the second step from the top. Benjamin stayed standing at first. Then she glanced up. "You can sit. You've been in my apartment for 14 hours. He sat one step below her, leaving space between them. The parking lot was mostly quiet. A porch light flickered near the next building. Somewhere, a car alarm chirped once and stopped. For a while, they said nothing. That silence was different from the ones before. Not comfortable, but less armed. Benjamin looked down at his hands. Miles had left a sticky mark on one finger from a cracker. He rubbed at it with his thumb. "He called me Ben," he said quietly. Lillian looked across the parking lot. "I heard. I know it doesn't mean what I want it to mean." "No," she said. "It doesn't." He nodded. That hurt. But he took it. Then she added, "But it means he remembered you." Benjamin looked over. Lillian didn't look back at him. She kept her eyes on the cracked striping of the parking spaces, like eye contact might make the sentence too generous. "Micah let you hold him too," she said. "Only because he was sick. Maybe." He waited. She didn't say more. The old Benjamin would have reached for the maybe, and turned it into hope out loud. This Benjamin just sat with it. After a minute, Lillian said, "When you accused me at the park, I hated you." He swallowed. There it was. No warning. No soft entry. Just the truth sitting beside them in the dark. "I know," he said. "No, I mean I really hated you for a second." Her voice stayed quiet. "Not because you were shocked. You had a right to be shocked, but because you looked at me like I was the kind of woman who would do that." Benjamin closed his eyes briefly. "I know. You didn't even ask if I was okay." The words came smaller. That made them worse. He opened his eyes. "You're right." Lillian's mouth tightened. I had practiced that moment so many times in my head. He turned slightly toward her. "Seeing me?" "Yeah." She gave a tired breath. "Sometimes I was angry. Sometimes I was calm. Sometimes I imagined you crying, which was petty." "It wasn't." "It was," she said, "but it was honest." He looked down. "I deserved worse than what you gave me." She turned then. "No, Benjamin. That's not the point." He went quiet. She looked tired enough to say the thing plainly. "I don't want to be put in a position where I have to decide what you deserve. That's another job. I already had too many." The sentence settled between them. Benjamin nodded slowly. "You're right." Lillian leaned back against the railing. "I wanted you to hurt," she admitted. Her voice changed on that line, like it cost more than the others. "When you found out, I wanted you to feel something big enough to match what I had been carrying, not because it would fix anything, just because—" She stopped and rubbed at her forehead. "I don't know. Because pain felt like proof, maybe." Benjamin didn't interrupt. A car moved slowly through the parking lot, headlights washing over them for a second before turning away. Lillian waited until it passed. "Then, when I saw your face at my kitchen table, I didn't feel better." Benjamin breathed in carefully. "I'm sorry." She looked at him. He corrected himself softly. "I'm not using it as a key." "I know." That was the first time she had said that. He held onto it, but gently. "I accused you because it was easier," he said. Lillian watched him now. He rubbed his palms together once. "If you had hidden them, then I could be angry. Cleanly angry. I could make myself the injured person in the story for a few minutes, before the rest caught up." His voice lowered. "But if you tried, and I didn't know, then I had to look at everything around me. My mother, my office, my own habits, all the ways I made myself reachable to investors and unreachable to you." Lillian's face shifted, but she didn't speak. "So I reached for the ugliest explanation," he said, "because shame came faster than grief." The words sat there, not polished, not enough, but real. Lillian looked away first. "I hate that I still know when you're telling the truth." Benjamin almost smiled, but didn't. "I hate that I gave you reasons to doubt it." She let out a small breath. Tired, human. Inside the apartment, the baby monitor crackled faintly through the open window. Both of them went still. No crying, just static. Lillian relaxed again, barely. Benjamin noticed. The night pressed around them, heavy and warm. After a while, he said, "I don't know what we are." Lillian looked down at her hands. "We're parents," she said. The answer came quick. "Safe." He nodded. "Yeah, and we're not back where we were." "I know. I don't even want to be back there," she said, surprising herself. Benjamin looked at her. She kept going before she could retreat. "Back there was me thinking love could survive on potential. Back there was you thinking silence was just space." He took that in. "And now?" Lillian rubbed her thumb along the edge of the step. "Now, I don't know." That was the most honest thing she had given him all night. Benjamin looked toward the parking lot. "I can live with not knowing." She gave him a look. "Can you?" He almost answered too fast, then stopped. "I'm learning to." That answer seemed to pass some quiet test. Not fully, but enough that she didn't push it away. The baby monitor crackled again. This time, Miles gave one sharp cry. Lillian stood immediately. Benjamin stood too, then waited. She noticed. The waiting, the restraint, the fact that he didn't rush past her into the apartment like urgency gave him rights. "Come on," she said, not warmly, not coldly, just tired. He followed her inside. At the twins' door, Lillian stepped in first. Benjamin stayed behind her until she looked over her shoulder and nodded. Only then did he enter. Miles was half awake, cheeks flushed, reaching one hand into the dim room. Benjamin didn't move until Lillian said, "You can try." So he did. He reached down carefully, lifted Miles against his chest, and whispered the only thing he knew to say, "I'm here." Lillian stood beside the crib, watching, and for the first time, the words did not sound like a promise he had made too late. They sounded like something he would have to prove again in the morning. By Sunday afternoon, the twins were back to themselves. Not fully. There was still a softness to them, a clinginess that hadn't been there before the fevers. Miles wanted to be carried more. Micah checked the room more often, like he was making sure nothing had changed while he wasn't looking. Lillian noticed everything. She always did. Benjamin noticed more than he used to. That mattered. The gathering wasn't planned as anything special. Just family again. Same yard in Eatonville. Same folding chairs. Same grill smoke and overlapping voices. No announcement. No reason beyond the fact that people gathered when they could. Benjamin didn't ask if he could come this time. Lillian told him. 3 o'clock, she said that morning while wiping Micah's face after breakfast. You can come by if you want. If you want, not if you should. Not if you're invited. If you want. He understood the difference. When he arrived, he didn't hesitate at the street this time. He parked, got out, walked in, still aware, still not comfortable, but not standing outside like he needed permission to breathe. Marcus saw him first again. "You're back." "Yeah." Marcus nodded once, then stepped aside, like that was enough conversation for now. That felt different. Not acceptance, but not resistance either. Benjamin moved through the yard slower this time, not scanning, not trying to locate Lillian immediately, like she was the center of everything. He saw Diane Carter at the table, arranging plates. "Diane," he said. She looked up. "Benjamin." A pause. Then, "You eat yet?" "Not yet." She nodded toward the grill. "Get something before Aunt Renee starts assigning you portions." "I will." That was easier. Still measured, but easier. Lillian was inside. He didn't go looking for her immediately. He got food. Actually asked before picking something up. Sat down. Ate, without trying to prove he could handle it. Somebody handed him a drink without making a comment about it. That counted for something. It was almost 20 minutes before Lillian came out. She had Micah on her hip and a small towel over her shoulder. Miles trailed behind her, slightly unsteady but determined, holding onto the back of her leg before letting go and taking 2 careful steps forward. Benjamin saw it, stood up without thinking. "Hey," he said. Lillian nodded. "Hey." Miles saw him, paused, then said, "Ben." Not loud, not excited, just recognition. Benjamin crouched down. "Hey, man." Miles walked toward him, slow but steady, then leaned into his shoulder like it had become something familiar enough to use. Benjamin lifted him carefully, not asking this time. Lillian watched. She didn't stop him. That was new. Micah stayed on her hip, one hand curled into her shirt, watching everything with that same serious, quiet attention. Benjamin glanced at him. "Hey, Micah." Micah blinked, then rested his head against Lillian's shoulder. Not rejection, just not ready. That was okay. Benjamin understood that now. The afternoon moved the same way it had before. Food, voices, small moments layered over each other, but something underneath it had shifted. Benjamin didn't feel like he was being watched the whole time. He still was, but it wasn't sharp. It was measuring, seeing if yesterday meant anything today. At one point, he found himself standing near the kitchen sink inside, rinsing out a plastic cup without thinking about it. No one had told him to. No one was watching. It just needed to be done. Water ran warm over his hands. The faucet squeaked slightly when he turned it. The counter had crumbs from earlier, and he wiped them away with the edge of a paper towel. Normal, small, unimpressive. The kind of thing he had never paid attention to before. Behind him, Lillian stepped into the kitchen. He didn't turn right away. She noticed that too. "You don't have to do that," she said. He rinsed the last cup and set it upside down on the counter. "I know." She leaned against the doorway, watched him for a second. "You're getting comfortable." It wasn't an accusation. Not quite. Benjamin dried his hands on a dish towel. "I'm trying not to be in the way." "That's not the same thing." He looked at her then. "I don't want to feel like I'm visiting." The honesty sat between them. Lillian studied his face, Not for the words, for the intention behind them. That takes time, she said. I know. You can't just settle in because it feels better. I'm not trying to. She nodded slowly. That answer held. Later, outside, Miles fell asleep again, this time in Benjamin's arms without needing to be worn down by fever first. Just the afternoon heat, the noise softening, his body deciding it was safe enough. Benjamin adjusted him carefully, didn't move too much, didn't look around to see who noticed. He just held him. Micah sat on the ground near Lillian, playing with a plastic spoon, occasionally glancing up at Benjamin and Miles like he was storing the image somewhere. Diane Carter watched from across the yard. Didn't say anything. Marcus leaned against the fence, arms crossed, eyes thoughtful. Aunt Renee walked past, looked at Benjamin once, then kept walking without commentary. That might have been the biggest sign of all. As the sun lowered, people started gathering things. Folding chairs scraped against the ground, plates stacked, music turned down. Benjamin stood near Lillian, still holding Miles. What do you want me to do? He asked quietly. With him? With all of it? Lillian looked at Miles first, then at Benjamin. For a second, she didn't answer, because the answer wasn't simple, it wasn't clean, and it wasn't something she could give him like instructions on a list. Stay, she said finally. He nodded. I can do that. She held his gaze. Not for today. He understood. Okay. That night, back at the apartment, the twins were asleep early. Exhaustion from the week had caught up with them. Lillian moved through the kitchen slowly, rinsing cups, stacking plates, the quiet work that came after a day full of people. Benjamin was already at the sink when she turned around. She hadn't heard him come in. He was rinsing another plastic cup, same as before, like he knew where it went, like he had been doing it longer than a few days. Lillian leaned against the counter, watched him. He didn't perform it, didn't turn to see if she was watching, didn't make a point of it. He just did it. The water ran. The house stayed quiet. Something in Lillian's chest loosened. Not fully, not enough to call it forgiveness, but enough that she didn't feel the need to guard every second. Benjamin turned off the faucet and set the last cup down. Then he looked at her, not asking anything, not pushing, just there. Lillian held his gaze for a second, then another, and this time, she didn't flinch. If you made it this far, then you already know. This wasn't really about money or even the twins. It was about what happens when someone shows up too late and then has to prove they're not going to disappear again. So I want to ask you something. Do you think Lillian did the right thing by keeping her guard up? Or should she have let Benjamin in sooner once she knew the truth? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear how you see it. And if this story stayed with you for even a moment, hit like, subscribe, and come back for more stories that feel a little too real to ignore. I'll see you in the next one.